guys, and welcome back to the Cruel Room. And no, we're not actually in the Cruel Room, are we? Of course we're not. For those that aren't aware, apologies that this video is late, but I have been incredibly ill for the past week and a bit. Symptoms started last Friday. The family had it, like my mum and dad. They were coughing and spluttering like the week before. Finally got to me last Friday, and then Saturday I was awful, Sunday I was awful, Monday I thought I was picking up, and then Tuesday just knocked me for 6 again. But then here we are, finally recording it on Thursday evening to try and get this out for you tomorrow, which will be today, of course, that you're watching it. So yeah, hopefully this will make it. And I really couldn't be asked to spend an hour faffing around with lighting and everything in the Cruel Room. I've got 4 different lighting rigs in there, and I just can't be asked to do it. So I thought it's going to save me an hour of time just doing it in here with this light up here that's decent-ish, I suppose. I've got myself wrapped up nice and warm. I'm still not 100%, as you can probably tell. I'm still quite a bit congested, but we need to get this out because it's a triple header. And yeah, you know, it's all go, go, go. So I need to get this one out before the next race weekend becomes relevant. Of course, Mexico this weekend coming, so we need to get the United States one out of the way. And what we're going to say for this weekend overall, the sprint format didn't really work at Austin, did it? Not that I like the sprint format anyway. I find it totally shite. And I don't think it should be done, but at Austin it didn't work at all, did it? Teams bringing updates clearly struggled, the likes of Aston Martin and Haas, both electing to start from the pit lane for the main race on Sunday because that one free practice session just wasn't enough for him to be able to get dialed in. Alonso ended up going back to the previous package. He took the updates off, so yeah, there was a lot of messing about, a lot of faffing. I didn't really get to see the sprint format too much. I've definitely missed the qualifying. So again, these points are pretty much based on the results that I've seen and just what I can remember, to be honest. So yeah, it's probably not going to be accurate. I mean, when is it ever? Everyone's always going to disagree anyway. So, you know, without further ado, oh, and I would just like to point out as well that these points I have awarded, I did actually give on Sunday because I was able to watch the race in some capacity on Sunday night, and that capacity was dosed up on drugs and still feeling shit. So when we come to these scores, I might be wildly wrong, and I might even surprise myself because I've even forgot what I've given. So anyway, without further ado, if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers a maximum of 10 points based on their race weekend's performance. If they have a particularly bad one, I go all the way down to 0. And what else is there? Yeah, bonus points are sometimes offered to those drivers that do something extra special during a race. And on the rare occasion I do award minus points to those drivers that do something extra special but for all the wrong reasons. Let's take a look at the current Cruel Room standings, and they're on the screen now for you to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver is going into this weekend's performance. And can you see them going up? Can you see them going down? And could you see them getting disqualified? Oh, it's all spicy, spicy stuff, isn't it? So then, let's kick things off with the race winner, because I've already been rambling on far too long. I've got comfy in my chair. It's almost like I'm doing a rant rather than a video. So anyway, I'm going to kick things off with the race winner, of course, Max Verstappen. So already champion, Red Bull already Constructors champions, but still, he does what he does best, doesn't he? It was a sprint win, it was a race win, and there's not really much more to say about it, is it? Although we did have track limits infringements, didn't we? The Friday qualifying that depicts that Sunday grid, of course, he made a mistake, didn't he? He went wide at turn 19 and got his lap time disallowed. So instead of being pole by 0.05 of a second, he ended up P6. So he had a lot of work to do. But work he did do. He progressed through. He managed to get the lead in the end over Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton. And yeah, Lewis Hamilton was chomping at the bit there, wasn't he, at the end? Really closing in. Max was reportedly struggling with brakes for quite a long time, particularly after his final stop. And yeah, as such, he cried and moaned like a bitch over the radio, didn't he? Worst car he's ever driven, and blah, 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 and shut up talking to me in the braking points. How many fucking times do I have to keep telling you? Whinge, 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 cry, cry, cry. So I've given him 5 points. And I think that's very generous that I've given him 5 points, to be honest. But that's all he's getting. Yeah, Max was just once again Max, wasn't he? Pole qualifying, started 6th, he should have been on pole. It's his own stupid fault for track limits, and then moaned like a bitch during the race itself. So, there you go. Well, I can't do more than that, can I? So yeah, middle of the road 5 to Max, and he wants to be lucky he's got that, to be honest. Finishing in second place, of course, crossing the line in third, we come to Lando Norris in that mighty McLaren. 4 podiums in a row now, is it? Unbelievable stuff for him. Just imagine if McLaren started the season this good and maintained it. I mean, obviously, it's kind of contrasting fortune, isn't it? If you could put the first half of Aston Martin's season with the second half of McLaren's season, you'd end up with a pretty formidable team there. Still would only be second in the constructors' standings, of course, but they'd be very close to Red Bull and probably would have nabbed a win as well at that point, I would say, if you'd managed to get that consistency through a team at the entire point of the season. So, yeah, Lando a bit defeatist, wasn't he, in an interview recently, saying that he thinks the chance of victory has escaped him now and they don't think they're going to be able to have a chance for another win. Qatar was their best shot, which I find surprising, to be honest, because we're coming to circuits like Las Vegas that are brand new. And I think that at that point, anything can happen at a brand new circuit, can't it? So I wouldn't be that defeatist. But nonetheless, Lando Norris's race weekend overall has once again been one of just fantastic, impeccable performanceness. And he's really knuckled down and got the best out of that car. P4 in the sprint, a front row start for the race on Sunday, and here he is finishing in second place in the end after crossing the line in third. All those reasons, of course, we'll come to in a moment. But yeah, an absolutely phenomenal effort by Lando. Incredible stuff. Great drive once again. He's getting no less than 10 points from me. No less than 10 points. British bias comes in once again because a driver's actually good from Britain. Hallelujah, praise the Lord. Got plenty of them on the grid, haven't we? Well, we've got 2 anyway. But yeah, honestly, Lando Norris this weekend, absolutely stupendous once again. Bringing home the points for McLaren and able now to leapfrog Aston Martin into that 4th place in the Constructors, which is absolutely crucial. I think they're 80 points behind Ferrari now, which might be a stretch with 4 rounds left to go plus a sprint. Might be a little bit out of reach, but you never know. If Ferrari keep doing Ferrari things, anything's possible. But yeah, maybe a bit of a stretch, but I would love to see him hunt them down. So yeah, for Lando Norris, it's a perfect 10 to him. Finishing in 3rd place, it is Carlos Sainz, smooth operator. Smooth, absolutely smooth operator, here he is. You know what, I'm glad he got a podium out of that, to be honest. I really am. I'm glad for Ferrari as well, but Ferrari are just fucking idiots, aren't they? We all know that. You know, Carlos Sainz, of course, benefited from the misfortune of a driver ahead. That's the 3rd time in his career he's done that now. Where a disqualification or a time penalty for another driver has got him on the podium after finishing just off the rostrum. So, yeah, Carlos Sainz this season has done a solid job, hasn't he? Difficult in places. He's not quite been with Leclerc on most occasions, but there's always been reasons for that, and sometimes the luck really has deserted Carlos, and, you know, Leclerc just keeps getting fucked over by strategies. But yeah, Carlos Sainz this weekend overall, just a solid performance. He started on the soft tyres during the sprint, didn't he? And was able to hold off George Russell, which is quite impressive considering those softs had cried enough by the end, I'm sure. And then in the main race itself, just drove solid again. So for that reason, I'm giving him 7.5. And I do think that's a solid effort. Maybe harsh by about half a point there, perhaps, but I think overall for Carlos Sainz this weekend, of course, his teammate Leclerc got the glory with the pole position. Sainz couldn't quite match him in those Saturday performances, could he? That's why he had to go on the softs in the sprint. But, you know, the Sunday and the racing aside where points matter, he did okay. So yeah, a solid 7.5 to Carlos Sainz. Then we come to Checo, Sergio Perez, and of course we already know he's disqualified on the cruel room anyway, and he breathes a big sigh of relief, doesn't he? Let's be honest. 4th place is probably the best finish he's had since, well, when? I've no idea, probably since he won in fucking Saudi or something, isn't it? He's just done absolutely diabolical and fallen off the edge of the planet, but the big reason why he breathes a sigh of relief is because his main title rival for getting that runners-up spot ended up getting chucked out of the race after overhauling him massively once again and eroding that points gap further. And he can now take a big sigh of relief. But with 4 rounds of the sprint still to go, I think that other driver could still catch up. I really do. But yeah, this time around, it's ended up falling in the lap of Perez that he's had a bit of good luck going his way. But does he really deserve it? I don't think so. I mean, apart from Qatar sprint, where he got wiped out by Aaron Ocon, There's been nothing else to mention that's been like, oh yeah, unlucky Checo. He's just been fucking shite. So yeah, Sergio Perez disqualified anyway, and has been long disqualified on the Cruel Room. Will remain that way, and once again, a lacklustre race turns into something a little bit better because of disqualifications around him, but still not impressive at all. And then we come to George of the Russell. Watch out for that DQ.
Hey guy, come join me in the disqualified pile. Don't worry, the goat doesn't bite. Well, not unless you want me to. Growl.
And there we have it, disqualification for George of the Russell. He has been on that naughty step for quite a while on a final warning, hasn't he? Has it been 3 races or something like that? He's avoided the disqualification, but he can't avoid it this time around, I am sorry to say. Elevated here in P5 due to everyone else's misfortunes ahead of him when he finished P7, and his teammate did a lot better, didn't he? Let's be honest. The whole weekend was all about the other Mercedes and not George. George was just lacking pace throughout. Himself even admitted it. Even said to everyone, look, I'm struggling. You know, I just can't find the pace. I'm not sure where. And there you go. So I'm sorry, George, but last year's Cruel Room champion by a mile in the end as well. I mean, for the Cruel Room anyway, it was quite a big gap. Yeah, he's just totally blown it, hasn't he? Totally blown it this year. I don't understand what. I wasn't expecting a season like he had last season. Of course, everyone was expecting Hamilton to get so much better and, you know, be able to build on last year. But this time around, this season, Hamilton has just walked all over him. And apart from an engine failure in Australia for George and the unfortunate timing of a pit stop at Silverstone, everything else has all been George's fault. And he's so far behind compared to his teammate in the standings. And yeah, it just had to happen. So yeah, George of the Russell, as much as it pains me, he's had 3 Latifis, he can't get any more warnings, and he's done yet another lacklustre performance where I don't think points should be awarded. He's been slapped with the disqualifications. There we go. George of the Russell has been disqualified. Then we come to Pierre Gasly. Bonjour, Pierre. Bonjour. There you go. Who's that? Who am I copying there? Dave, eh? Dave? Well, you nicked my George of the Russell, so I'm nicking your bonjour. Yeah, Pierre Gasly elevated it to P6 in the end. What a stunning effort by him this weekend in the Alpine. Yeah, you know what? I think he's done a solid job this weekend. Points in the sprint as well, if I remember rightly, and has just done a great job overall. So, yeah, I don't really know what else I can say. Ocon had a tough one this time around, it must be said. But there Pierre Gasly was, picking up the points. I mean, Alpine aren't fighting for anything. They're safe in 6th. They can't get to 5th. 7th isn't going to catch them. So, you know, they're just safe in 6th place. And Gasly picks up some more points for them. They're not so much crucial, but they're just nice to have in the kitty, of course, aren't they? And it's good for Gasly's championships. He's got up inside the top 10 now, hasn't he, I believe? Finally overtaken Lance Stroll in the points, is it? Or is it even his own teammate Ocon? Can't remember, but nonetheless, Gasly is inside that top 10, so be a nice boost for him, that. And for Pierre Gasly, I've awarded him 8 points this weekend, which, looking back on reflection, is very harsh, because there was nothing more he could have done. Points in the sprint, points in the main race itself, drove really well, good qualifyings. Very harsh that actually, but yeah, I was high as a kite when I did these scores. So yeah, 8 points and very, very harsh 8 as well. So I don't want to take anything away from Pierre Gasly, but a harsh 8 I feel, looking back on reflection. But yeah, nonetheless, Pierre Gasly, a great weekend overall, fantastic effort, and did Alpine proud. Finishing in 7th place, it is... Hang on, am I hallucinating still? Am I still ridiculously ill? What the frig is going on? It's Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll. And even if you forget about the disqualifications ahead, he still scored points and started in the pit lane. Oh my Gideon, what has happened? What has happened? What has happened here? I can't believe it. I honestly cannot believe it. Unbelievable, Jeff. I just can't believe that. Lance Stroll has scored points for Aston Martin in a season where we never thought it was possible, eh? He scored about 12 compared to his teammate Alonso on 364. But here we go. Lance Stroll actually had a good Sunday. Pit lane start, good strategy by the Aston Martin squad. Definitely helped to make the changes overnight and start from the pit lane. You know, I mean, you could say, yeah, he was out in Q1 again and only could make it in Q2. Alonso did know better this time around this weekend. Everything that Alonso did was matched by Stroll the whole way. And even though Alonso isn't inside the points, those Aston Martins were together until Alonso had a failure on the car. So there was... He actually, I just can't believe it. So yeah, disqualified anyway on the crawl room. He's been the first and will remain the first, obviously. But yeah, has been for some time. I don't think he'd managed... I don't even know how long he lasted, to be honest. But it weren't very long. But yeah, genuinely, the first time I've been impressed for Stroll since... probably Turkey 2020, something like that. It's been a while. But yeah, well done, Lance, I suppose. Finishing in 8th place in the end after crossing the line in P10, it is Yuki Tsunoda. Now, this guy, I am genuinely chuffed to see him up here. He deserves a bit of luck to go his way, and he's finally got a better result than 10th in the end and securing P8, which is not just 4 points, because someone had the gap to be able to go and pit for a fresh set of soft tyres at the end and go bang the fastest lap in at the end as well. So on the last lap scored fastest lap point. So that's 5 points to AlphaTauri, and that brings them to within just 2 points of Haas for 9th place in the Constructors, which is just balmy. Absolutely balmy. But if anyone deserved it, Yuki Tsunoda deserved it. He's had 3 P10s this season. He's had about 15 P11s. He's been close to points, but then strategy hasn't gone his way. He's had one bad race this season as Yuki. Everything else, he has been nailed on, solid, and delivering the absolute best out of that AlphaTauri car. And here he is this weekend, doing it once again, dragging it into a points-paying position, picking up that fastest lap point as well, let's not forget that. And then to find out that he's been elevated a couple of places as well, I was happy for him, I really was. This is a fantastic start. This is great for Yuki. I'm really happy for him. Finally something's gone his way. It's not a P11. It's not a case of there's been 2 penalties ahead and he's looked into a point. He scored the points on merit and then just got elevated to score more. Congratulations, Yuki, this weekend. Solid effort. I don't know what happened in the sprint. He was out in Q1, I think it was, and couldn't do anything in the race. Not really interested. Only top 8 are going to score points in that sprint. Is an AlphaTauri going to finish inside the top 8? Not really. So it didn't really matter. But yeah, the main race itself, where points mattered, he delivered the goods, and then a little bit of luck at last went his way, and he scored some solid points. He deserved that, and well done to him. So it's a full 10. It's full 10 for me for Yuki Tsunoda. Stunning, stunning effort. Well done, Yuki Tsunoda. Finishing in 9th place after securing 11th on the road, so elevated 2 places into 9th. It is Alex Albon in the Williams. Now, I'm looking at this score that I've given him, and I'm trying to question what my rationale was whilst doing it, I've got to be honest. But then I'm trying to think it, and it does somewhat make sense, because at the end of the day, I was just purely frustrated at the fact that he was getting track limits again. It was track limit warnings, 5-second time penalty for track limits, and then he was under investigation after that. Nothing else came of it in the end, which was lucky for him, because it could have dropped him outside the points that he ended up getting in the end. But I was very frustrated to see Alex constantly getting those track limit warnings again. It's like he can't quite learn from Austria, he can't quite learn from the other circuits. The Williams car isn't the best car to drive on the road, of course, but no one else was picking up penalties or warnings. We had a few black and white flags, don't get me wrong, but you need to push the limits, but no one else actually got a time penalty for those limits. So that did frustrate me. What also was a reason for this score that I think I've given is the fact that Logan Sargent was absolutely nowhere this weekend, and then in the main race itself on Sunday, Logan matched him every step of the way. A driver that everyone else thinks is a total frigging reject. Everyone else has just really doubted Logan this season, as have I, and I will continue to do so. And this looked like another shite weekend for him, wasn't it? Last in qualifying, last in the sprint. But then here we are, matching your teammate and only a few seconds behind him at the flag, whether it's for points or not, and then elevated into the points. raises your eyebrows a little bit, that, doesn't it? You think, well, hang on a minute, what could Alex have done then? Had he had a better day? You know, did Alex have an off day? And so Logan have a good one? You know, because it's been very difficult for Logan to match Alex for so long. But yeah, overall, you know, let's just look at the race in itself. The sprint race, he ended up 3/10 away from a point there. Ended up P9, but that was a poor qualifying. I think he could have done better. The main race itself for the Sunday, he was out in Q1, but thankful that 4 cars elected to start from the pit lane to get himself into 14th place. So that was quite lucky. So he already was elevated quite highly up the grid where he should have started, you know. So, yeah, overall, I mean, I've given Alex 4 points. And I will say that is harsh. But I just remember being so frustrated about the track limits. The fact that Logan matched him. And I just thought, well, where could Alex have been had he qualified better? And not only that, let's not forget, it was a whole pit stop behind an Alfa Tauri for Yuki Tsunoda to be able to put a fresh set of tyres on and come out again. You know, strategy aside, I don't think you should be a whole pit stop behind an Alfa Tauri. You know, so yeah, I do think it's a harsh score looking back on it, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, there's a lot of factors there that I've really taken into it, and maybe in previous rounds, I've overscored him and over-delivered because of a strategy as opposed to an actual performance pace. I'm not sure. I love Alex, don't get me wrong, of course I love Alex, I always do, one of my favourite drivers on the grid. Love to see him do well, love to see him score some points in the end that he did for Williams, but overall, his teammate matched him when it were crucial there, and yeah, I don't think he should have been about 30 seconds behind an Alfa Tauri either. So yeah, it's 4 points to Alex Albon. As mentioned, climbing from 12th place into the final points paying position, it is Logan Sargent, becoming the first American in over 30 years to secure a World Championship point in a Formula 1 race. The last, of course, being Michael Andretti, who actually scored his first points and only points in Formula 1, with 4 of them finishing 3rd, because he was absolutely dog shit until that race, wasn't he? But yeah, overall, you know, Logan Sargent this weekend, as we've already touched on him, absolutely nowhere, completely vacant this weekend, nowhere in the sprint qualifying, nowhere in the sprint race, nowhere in the main qualifying, and then come the race on Sunday, gained a few places as a result of those pit lane starters. He was down there at the back for starters, and you think, right, well, that's where he's going to stay. And then all of a sudden, Jesus Christ, he's coming and coming and coming. And he was going for it, wasn't it? So I actually think that's probably one of his best drives of the season. And not just because he ended up scoring a point in the end, but because of how close he was to Alex Albon. Just a few seconds behind him in the end. I mean, that is a good effort, that, for a driver that's been absent all weekend. May as well not bother being there. And then all of a sudden it comes good on the Sunday. You know, you could put some of it down to strategy, but most of it's got to be pure pace, hasn't it? Something clearly clicked with Logan this weekend, so that was nice to see, actually, nice surprise. And then of course see him elevated into the points. Yeah, it was a good all-round weekend for him. So yeah, disqualified on the cruel room anyway, has been for quite some time. I'm pleased he's finally scored a point though, really happy for him for that. And yeah, that's it. Logan Sargent is the last of the point scorers. Hallelujah, at last he's done it. Finishing just outside the points in 11th place in the end, it is Nico Hulkenberg. Ah, this bloody Haas, eh? This bloody Haas. I don't know what to say anymore, to be honest. It's just frustrating, isn't it? Like I say, as already mentioned with Yuki Tsunoda, AlphaTauri have really closed that gap now on them. 10 points to 12. I can see AlphaTauri scoring points in the next few races. I really can't see Haas scoring any, so I think they could end up finishing last in the Constructors' Championship in the end, which would just be poor from them. You know, Hulkenberg has been the main breadwinner here. You know, he scored 6 points of those, has he? Or 7 points of those out of the 12 that they've scored. So, yeah, you know, Hulkenberg's done the legwork of that, but in the end, this weekend, once again, the updates didn't work. Had to start from the pit lane, but then he made progress. Came through the field, was, you know, on the cusp of points here and there at places. Had he not been overtaken by Logan Sargent at the end of the race or towards the end, then of course Hulkenberg would have scored that point instead. But yeah, it's just a shame, isn't it? Really, it's just a shame to see Hulkenberg wasted down here. I think he'd be a good shout for Red Bull, personally. As much as people would like to disagree with me on that, I think he's done a solid job in the worst car now. It's massively suffering with tyre deg, no balance, it's just a heap of shit. So, for Nico Hulkenberg, I've awarded him 7.5, and that's where it's going to stay for me. I think he's done a solid performance once again in a car that's dog shit, with updates that clearly haven't worked. I mean, Aston Martin managed to feather theirs out, and it worked for Stroll. Also worked for Alonso on the upgraded car, but for Haas, it didn't work at all. So yeah, there you go. 7.5 to Nico Hulkenberg. Next up, we come to Valtteri Bottas, disqualified on the cruel room anyway, and shall remain that way. There's nothing to say, is there? Vacant. Nowhere to be seen, the Alfa Romeos at any point during this weekend. Nothing in special, nothing improving, no great, just trundling round in these lowly positions, and that was that. So yeah, Bottas disqualified anyway, remains that way, and once again another lacklustre effort by Alfa Romeo. Then we come to Zhou Guan Yu, and I've awarded him 3 points, and that's a very generous 3. I can't believe I didn't award him a Latifi, because he certainly deserved it once again for yet another lacklustre performance. I don't know what I can say anymore to this. Alfa Romeo are just really struggling with their drivers that they've got. I'm not saying that car's going to be record-breaking, world-beating. It's not going to go out there and beat Red Bulls or match McLaren's pace or even get near where Aston Martin can at times. But it's definitely on pace with a Williams and an AlphaTauri. And if they're in the points, even if it's elevated into them as a result of disqualifications, that's where those Alfa Romeos have to be. They have to be near or in the points at every race. And they're just not doing that at all. So yeah, Zhou Guan Yu, very lucky to get 3 points. Very lucky. Count your chickens and run, because I'm not giving you any more excuses. In fact, I think I've given him that much leniency that I'm still going to give him a final warning. So there you go. Zhou Guan Yu, I'm going to give him a final warning. He's only on 2 Latifis. I'm not quite sure how he's managed to do that. But he's on a final warning now. I don't care. He can't have another Latifi. It's just going to be disqualified from here. Book your ideas up, Joe. I like you, but you've got to get quick and quickly. And then we come to Kevin Magnussen.
Hey, guess what, bud? I slipped into the Haas factory during the summer break and played around with some designs of their new updates. I drew the poop emoji and it gained them 3 tenths, you know. I wanted to take credit for it, but I wanted to be the Canadian Michael Schumacher, not Adrian Newey.
And there we have it, Latifi of the Week to Kevin Magnussen. And because that is his 3rd Latifi, that also means that he is on his final warning as well. So he'll be joining Zhou Guan Yu in that final warning pile with 4 rounds and 1 sprint left to go. Can you believe it? So there's potentially going to be 2 more drivers disqualified before the season's out. There's a couple of people that are still on 2 Palmers as well, 2 Latifis. So if they don't book their ideas up, it could go wrong for them as well. So there's a lot to go here. But I mean, Kevin Magnussen this weekend, look at where Hulkenberg finished in the end. Just outside the points. Yeah, I know it was an unlucky 13th in the end, crossing the line. But, you know, at least he was up there doing something, wasn't he? Kevin Magnussen's finished behind the Alfa Romeos, who I've just absolutely slated for doing nothing. Kevin Magnussen just vacant again. Vacant, completely vacant. Yeah, you know, Hulkenberg might have got qualifying wrong where he should have been through into Q2 and didn't, and Magnussen made it, but not good enough, because Magnussen still ended up at the back and Hulkenberg ended up ahead of him. So yeah, there we go. Anyway, yeah, Magnussen, Latifi of the Week, his 3rd one, can't get any more, and he's on a final warning as well, just like Zhou Guan Yu, so really needs to step it up now. I don't expect it to be points, but I expect him to be matching and beating Hulkenberg now regularly towards the end of this season to survive this Cruel Room Championship. That's all he's got to do. He's got to keep going. Don't be shit, don't be at the back. And that's that. And then last of the runners, we come to Daniel Ricciardo, and he's not got a Latifi simply for the fact that it's his first race back after breaking his hand. He's been out of the car for several weeks, and yeah, he was on a dog shit one-stop strategy, which was never going to work in a month of Sundays. I don't know why AlphaTauri decided that. I don't know who decided it, but there should definitely be shot. Terrible overall, really, just terrible. Nothing more to say than that. Was it a great weekend by Ricciardo? The sprint looked okay, finishing 12th in the end there. Yuki was 14th in that, I think. So, yeah, beat him there. But as mentioned, we had a difficult qualifying with Yuki. And it didn't really matter anyway because points are down to 8th. And, yeah, he's done okay. He's done okay. So, for Daniel Ricciardo, he's going to get 3.5. 3.5 to Danny Rick. Nothing special. Below average. Yeah, he was on the one stop. That really compromised him. Totally get that. Totally understand that. But I'm still in the big belief that this fucking Ricciardo experiment needs to end because he's just past it, he's washed up. I honestly don't know what more people need to look and understand that despite the fact he's had several weeks off with a broken wrist, a rookie still got in that car and has done a better job than he did in those 4 or 5 races that he did than what Ricciardo has just jumping back in now. You know, Daniel Ricciardo has had, you know, over 150 races in Formula 1, over 200 races, fuck knows how long. He's been in it a while. You know, he's done so many races in Formula 1. He's won races, he's been on the podium, he's had pole positions. He knows how to drive a car. Whether he's ill, whether he's broken, whether he's poorly, whatever. He knows how to drive a car, and he has come into that AlphaTauri again and hasn't done any better than Liam Lawson. In fact, he's probably done worse. And that's before you take the one stop into consideration for me personally. I just don't think he's done it. I think he's out. And I can't believe he's got a seat for next year. And the only reason why he's got a seat for next year is because he's an absolute merchant, isn't it? That's all they're going to do him for. They're going to pry him to sell merchandise. That big cheesy honey badger smile. Oh, the honey badger's back. Number 3 on it. Get your hat. It's 80 quid. Yeah, that's all he's there for. That's all he's there for, selling merch. Great PR guy, but a shite driver it seems now. Totally washed and past it. And I don't understand why Ricciardo's even bothering either. Because let's put it this way. Where's the best situation is going to end up? Number 2 driver to Max Verstappen in a Red Bull. And why did he leave Red Bull in the first place? Because he didn't want to be number 2 to Max Verstappen in a Red Bull. So he's had several years where he's declining career, switching teams willy-nilly, going to McLaren, which was a big mistake. And he's going to end up back potentially, and all he's after wanting is going back to where he were previously, where he's not going to be able to win a championship, where he's going to be number 2 to Max Verstappen. What was the point? Should have just stayed where you were. You could have had a lot more wins under your belt, a lot more podiums, you could have been a lot more highly acclaimed. I don't know. His mistake was leaving Renault anyway. That was where his big mistake went. He shouldn't have left Renault. I think that team would be a lot more further forward if Ricciardo had stayed there, but yeah, he didn't. He moved and then fucked himself over. So anyway, yeah, 3.5 to Danny Rick. Then we come to the list of retirements on this list. So the last that retired in the race, the first on this list, of course, it is Fernando Alonso. Middle of row 5 for Fernando, I'm afraid to say. Can't do anything more than that for the retirement drivers. All I can score is the points. I can only award them half points, basically. I can only score them in the middle of row 5 as a maximum. Don't think it's fair for drivers that complete a whole race that potentially get less. But there you go. Some drivers do shit anyway. But yeah, for Fernando Alonso, it's the middle of row 5 this weekend to him. Had suspension damage or floor damage at the end there, just as he scraped himself into the top 10. Was running around in 8th or 9th, wasn't he? And then had an issue with the car and had to retire. So a big shame for him because he climbed through the field. It would have been a double points finish for Aston Martin as well. So yeah, shame that happened to Alonso. It could have maybe just kept him ahead of McLaren this time around. Would have been inevitable. I think that McLaren would have got him in the end, but it could have just held that swing for another round. But as it was out, and that was that. So middle of row 5 to Fernando Alonso. Then we come to Oscar Pastry. What's your favourite pastry? And what a shame for him. I've scored him 3, and I think that's very generous 3, to be honest. Cooked his tyres in the sprint, if I remember rightly, so tumbled out the points there. Then had silly contact at the start with Ocon, just a little bit of a touch, bit of a lover's tiff. And yeah, that was that really. So yeah, I don't know what more to say. 3 points to Oscar. Not his race weekend overall. He was very much lacking compared to Lando Norris. And yeah, that's that. And then last of the retirements, of course, it is Esti Besti Ocon. And I've awarded him a very generous 4. Very generous 4, I've got to be honest. I'm surprised I didn't give him a Latifi, actually. So take that and run, Ocon, because you won't be getting any more of that sympathy from me. Was outside the points in the sprint race. Then in the main race itself, got a big hole in the side pod as a result of the contact with Oscar Piastri. You could say that it was Ocon that got opposite lock and slid into him. It was a first lap, cold tyres, it was just going to be one of those things. Something always tends to happen at the start of the race, so it was quite undramatic, but nonetheless ended both of their races. So, yeah, Nesty Bestie Ocon, lucky he didn't get a Latifi really, and it's just 4 points to him. Then we come to the disqualifications, unfortunately. Not me disqualifying them personally, but disqualified in the race, of course. Post-race, after a fantastic effort. So they've crossed the line. It's not their fault they're disqualified. I'm going to score them the points I would have scored them had they finished in the position they finished. So, first on this list, of course, it is Lewis Hamilton. What a stunning weekend by Lewis. Let's not forget that. P3 in the sprint qualifying and main qualifying. Finished P2 in the main race. Finished P2 in the sprint race. Was looking like maybe, just maybe, he could have got Max at the end there. Another lap or two, I think he would have got him. I can't believe it. So, yeah, but how gutting would that have been? It's gutting now to see him lose the podium, but how much more gutting would it have been to see him lose the win as a result of that flaw? So, yeah, the flaw was, too worn. The plank was far too worn. It was outside its tolerances, and he suffered a disqualification as a result. Technical infringements can't be, it's not like a sporting regulation where you've got a bit of leeway there. The rules are the rules. You either adhere to them or you fail them and you're out. So, yeah, big shame for Lewis Hamilton this weekend, but nonetheless, he's getting a full 10 points from me. Wasn't his fault why he was disqualified, and drove impeccably well all weekend. There was not one single fault from him this weekend. Absolutely fantastic, and I don't blame him at all this weekend for a stunning job. So, yeah, a perfect 10 to Lewis Hamilton. And then, of course, the last driver that we come to in this disqualification pile, and the last that we're going to talk about over this weekend, it is Sha-la-la, oh sacre bleu, Sha-la-la-la-la. I can't believe it. Honestly can't believe it. I'm gutted for him, I really am. Crossed the line P6 in the end after starting in pole position. But the powers that be at Ferrari decided, yeah, one stop sounds good, we're going to copy Alfa Tauri. Yeah, because that worked well. And yeah, it didn't work out at all. Finished 6th and then got disqualified anyway. So it's a good job that they put him on a shit one-stop strategy, really, isn't it? Because can you imagine him winning the race or getting on the podium, then getting chucked off? My God. For Shalala this weekend, I have scored him a solid 7, and very, very, very harsh indeed. I know it is harsh. He deserves a lot more than that for that pole position lap. He had a great start initially, although Norris did get past him, didn't he? And then that one-stop strategy really just ruined his entire race. So it should have been maybe another point or maybe even another 2 at best. But yeah, Shalala this season, what a season to forget. Ruined his race, did the Ferrari strategy team to drop him from pole position to 6th. And then the Ferrari technical team fucking ruined him by giving him the wrong ride-out settings to damage his floor and plank too excessively, so he can't even have P6, he gets disqualified. Ferrari being Ferrari once again. A solid 7 to Shalala. So there we have it then, guys. Those were the runners and riders of the United States Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high? Any too low? The updated standings are on the screen now for you to take a look at and see where your favourite driver is. Have they gone up? Have they gone down? Have they George Russelled it and got into that disqualification pile? What a shame, what a shame. Remember, Zhou Guanyu and Kevin Magnussen on their final warnings. Any more shenanigans from them, and they're out of here as well. So we could end up seeing an entire page of drivers slapped in that disqualification pile if they don't carry on and don't improve. Massive thanks as always goes out to Dan of Mushy Gaming, formerly Mushy Gaming of course, for providing me with the scoreboard that you see on your screen now, for the intro, for the outro, and for the driver icons that you see in the top of your screens if I could be bothered to add and post-edit. Yeah, a great guy, only a few subscribers away from 2,000, so really please, if you haven't subscribed to him, go subscribe to him and make sure he gets that 2,000 because he's been deserving of it for such a long time. Who can forget Dave, F1 Games PlayStation as well, of course, who's currently got my illness as well. So sorry, Dave, I've somehow given it you from here down to Kent. But yeah, hope you are feeling better soon. And of course, Dominic Orlando. Thank you so much to him for being the resident Latifi of the week, providing that voice that you all know and love. So I will see you all on Tuesday. I'm hoping I'm feeling better, feeling much better now, and hopefully another weekend of racing can really get the rest of this shit out of my system, and I can be back in the crawl room and back to my usual ranty shouty self. Sorry if this one was a bit subdued, but nonetheless, yeah, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for the kind messages as well when everyone found out I was ill. Really appreciate it. I'll see you all Tuesday, all being well, fingers crossed, 6 PM, for another exciting episode of the Crawl Room, Mexico Grand Prix style. Let's go. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and as always, much love.